Okay, let's unpack this. When you hear the word lasagna, you immediately picture, that familiar, deeply satisfying tower of pasta, beef, and cheese.
Right.
It's culinary comfort food. It's an institution. But what if I told you that that simple, humble layered pasta is actually a foundational culinary template, one that's capable of supporting almost any flavor combination imaginable?
It's absolutely true. Our deep dive today is into this fascinating catalog of layered recipes that, they fundamentally redefine what lasagna even means. This isn't just one recipe that's been refined over and over.
Yeah.
It's a systematic collection of 50 distinct interpretations, and it really treats layering as a structural concept.
Exactly. Our mission today is to truly understand the scope of this layered universe. We're going to analyze the ingredient swaps, the unexpected flavor profiles, and I think most importantly, the essential technical steps that distinguish dozens of these methods of assembly. We'll be focusing pretty intensely on the first dozen or so versions, mostly because they introduce the major technical challenges we see repeated throughout the entire collection.
And what's so fascinating here is just the sheer breadth of adaptation. We need to look really closely at how simple ingredient choices, like, say, swapping the traditional ricotta for processed cheddar, or shifting from a dense meat ragu to black beans, don't just change the flavor.
Right.
They drastically alter the entire structural and, the procedural requirement of the final dish. We are moving from the fiercely traditional all the way to these spectacular dessert anomalies like chocolate lasagna.
50 versions. That number alone is just staggering. And for you, the listener, it demonstrates how rigorously this concept of layering can be experimented with.
It really does.
And when you glance at the sheer volume of recipes, these thematic groupings immediately jump out. We start with the core, the foundational ideas like ideal lasagna, which, seems to be aiming for the platonic form of lasagna. And then we see several recipes just titled Lasagna version 1 through version 9.
And that systematic titling, it speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It suggests a very methodical, almost laboratory-like approach to culinary experimentation,
Totally.
where the author is meticulously documenting these subtle shifts in proportion or technique, trying to capture every single angle of the classic preparation before they diverge wildly. It feels like an intellectual exercise in gastronomy.
But then right up against that systematic numbering, you get the personalized named recipes, which immediately grounds the collection in like a domestic or regional tradition.
Oh, yeah.
We see Lasagna Tony's from Disney World, Lasagna Rob, Lasagna Maria, Luigi's Lasagna al Forno, and Margaret's Lasagna.
These aren't just technical specifications anymore.
No, these are culinary family heirlooms being shared. Tony's Disney World version, for example, it just makes you wonder, what unique, maybe theme park-inspired element did he incorporate that warranted its own title?
It creates this beautiful tension,
Yeah.
between the rigorous, numbered sort of academic approach and the intimate, passed-down familial recipe. It tells us that lasagna is both a precise structure and a deeply personal expression.
And structurally, they also start breaking the mold right away. We move from the classic flat rectangular casserole format, which is the default, to these innovative structures like lasagna roll-ups and its twin recipe lasagna rolls, and then the architecturally ambitious lasagna torte.
That immediately tells us something really important. The definition of lasagna here relies less on the shape of the finished product and more on the foundational layering technique itself.
It doesn't matter if it's flat or rolled up.
Exactly, whether the layers are vertical sheets or spiral tubes or circular cakes.
And as we see that layering evolve, we also see a clear focus on adapting this classic structure to, well, contemporary dietary demands. This collection is keenly aware of the health-conscious eater.
Absolutely. There's a notable inclusion of recipes specifically targeting them, or alternative ingredients. The collection has low-calorie turkey spinach lasagna and low-fat corn lasagna.
And then you have the more suggestive titles, right? Light and easy lasagna and lighthearted lasagna. That suggests a dual focus not just on fat reduction, but also maybe on simplicity of assembly, perhaps appealing to cooks who felt intimidated by the complexity of those traditional long simmer recipes.
And we see the emphasis on low fat as this recurring procedural theme. It indicates the authors were very mindful of ingredient substitutions that preserved flavor and texture, but minimize components like, high-fat ground beef or whole milk ricotta.
It's a whole category.
It is. We find low-fat lasagna, low-fat turkey lasagna sauce, and low-fat vegetable lasagna. This isn't just one healthy alternative. It's a systematic effort to reduce fat across all potential variants of the dish.
And this leads us to the really unexpected titles. The entries that force you to stop and question the very definition of the dish itself. When you look down the list and see apple lasagna,
And chocolate lasagna.
and chocolate lasagna, you realize we are dealing with a structural template that can accommodate fruit and cocoa, not some strict rule book that requires tomato and beef.
And we also have lasagna of greens and lemons, which just screams refinement and precise technical control. And then the utterly bold, flavor-fusing chili lasagna.
Okay, chili lasagna is where the structure really faces a major compositional challenge, right? I mean, if the core of traditional lasagna is built around the high acidity and moisture of tomato sauce, what happens when you substitute that for a chili base?
Well, that's it. A chili base, which might use beans, meat, and a variety of oils. It fundamentally changes the hydration dynamics and how the layers bind together. There's a whole new set of problems to solve.
So that's the question this collection implicitly answers, isn't it? What fundamental criteria must be met for a dish to still be considered lasagna? Is it the noodle material? The shape?
I believe the unifying element is precisely the mandated, careful, and precise layered construction. The structural engineering is the constant, regardless of the flavor outcome.
So it's the verb of layering, not the noun of the ingredients.
Exactly. If the process involves meticulously stacking distinct components separated by sheets of pasta, it earns the title. The structure is the rule, the ingredients are the variables.
Okay, let's start with the heavyweights then. The classic meaty foundations, beginning with American lasagna. And this recipe is truly massive.
It's huge.
It's not just dinner for a small family. It's clearly designed for, I don't know, institutional catering, large gatherings, or a serious session of meal prepping and bulk freezing.
The scale is indeed striking. I mean, this preparation was intended to fill 4 separate 8 by 2 inch pans.
4?
4. And the ingredients list reflects this industrial scale. 2¼ pounds of lean ground beef, 3 pounds of cooked lasagna noodles, 3 pounds of cream-style cottage cheese, and 12 ounces of shredded processed cheddar cheese.
Let's just pause on that cheese combination, because that's a massive insight into the American definition of this dish. It relies on both cream-style cottage cheese and processed cheddar. That's a deliberate shift away from the traditional Italian purity of ricotta and mozzarella.
It is.
So what function do those substitutions serve in a recipe this massive?
Well, that combination dictates texture, cost, and stability. Cottage cheese is cheaper and provides a very high moisture content compared to denser ricotta, so it contributes creaminess. The processed cheddar, unlike fresh mozzarella, has a high melt index and an aggressive, sharp flavor that can cut through all that beef. But more importantly, when you freeze and reheat it, processed cheese holds its emulsification much better than pure fresh mozzarella, which often separates and gets oily when you thaw it.
Ah, so the choice is logistical.
It's entirely logistical. It's built to survive freezing.
The sauce formulation is also fascinating. It calls for 24 ounces of tomato sauce, then another 18 ounces of tomato sauce, that duplication is right there in the recipe, and 2¼ cups of heated water.
Yeah, that specific combination of 2 different quantities of tomato sauce and the added water tells us a lot about the desired consistency. Instead of a thick, slow-simmered, concentrated ragu, this sauce is built for volume and for moisture.
And the heated water.
The heated water isn't just to stretch the volume, it's a procedural shortcut. It creates a quick, thin liquid base that thoroughly hydrates the noodles and the cottage cheese mixture very quickly, which is essential when you're prepping 4 pans at once.
And the logistical requirements are the most demanding part. The preparation explicitly requires the baker to line the 4 pans with heat-resistant wrap, leaving an allowance for folding over the top. Then comes this structural mantra: pack this dish tightly in order to minimize air pockets.
That instruction is the science of freezing in action. Air pockets in a frozen dish lead to freezer burn and structural collapse when you reheat it. By packing it tightly, they are aiming for a dense, uniform block that will thaw and reheat evenly without developing voids or becoming soggy. It's a structural guarantee.
And the freezing instructions are the true measure of its logistical ambition. After baking at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes, the dish must cool for about 30 minutes at room temperature, be completely wrapped, sealed with freezer tape, labeled, and crucially,
And this is the part.
it must be frozen for 10 to 12 hours before you remove them from the pans.
This step is the key structural engineering insight. If you try to remove the lasagna from the pan immediately, the still warm internal structure is likely to collapse under its own weight, especially with all that moisture from the cottage cheese.
It would just be a pile of mush.
Exactly. By freezing it solid within the metal mold, you ensure the structure sets completely. The pan acts as a temporary exoskeleton until the ingredients solidify into a structurally stable, dense frozen brick that can then be safely wrapped and stored without losing its definition.
Okay, so let's contrast that very complex logistical approach with baked lasagna, which feels like a much more standard, immediate, non-freezer format.
Right, this is a return to the domestic scale. It uses 1 pound of ground beef, half a pound of lasagna sheets, 1 medium-sized can of tomatoes, and 1 small can of tomato sauce.
This feels much more familiar.
It is, and the complexity here shifts entirely from logistics and bulk prep to sauce refinement and depth of flavor. This recipe demands a significant investment in time up front.
The sauce simmer detail here is precise. It requires simmering for about 40 minutes after you've already spent 20 minutes sautéing the meat, onion, and garlic with shortening.
So that's a full hour.
A full hour dedicated just to developing the meat sauce flavor before you even start assembling anything. This is all about building richness, letting the flavors meld, and the sauce thicken naturally through reduction, which is the complete antithesis of the American lasagna method of just quick heating and adding water.
And the cheese strategy here is a blend of textures. It uses mozzarella slices for that stringy melt, cheddar, just half a cup for sharpness, and cream-style cottage cheese 1 cup for the creamy binder. And the key layering note is that the procedure ends with the meat mix, which is then topped with 1/3 of the mozzarella. The meat is deliberately positioned as the second-to-last layer just below the final cheese melt, maximizing the concentration of flavor right before you get that topping.
So moving to the ideal lasagna, this version focuses heavily on the traditional Italian cheeses ricotta and mozzarella with ground beef. The core ingredients are 1 pound of ground beef, 1 pound of lasagna noodles, 1 pound of ricotta, and half a pound of sliced mozzarella. The goal here seems to be purity and structural stability, not massive volume.
Exactly, and this recipe acknowledges sauce flexibility right up front. It states you can create your personal sauce beat beef or use ragu, large jar, then add the beef to the sauce.
That immediate concession to using a pre-made sauce is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It suggests that the ideal state lies less in the long simmering process of the ragu and more in the quality of the cheese mixture and the rigor of the layering.
It's all about the assembly.
And the layering is highly unconventional. It's unique to this recipe. It alternates noodles, ricotta, noodles again, then beaten eggs, and then sauce. It repeats that process, ending with noodles topped with mozzarella slices and sprinkled with beef sauce. The specific inclusion of beaten eggs directly layered onto noodles, that needs analysis. Why is that step there?
That step is pure structural chemistry. When you introduce a large amount of ricotta, you're introducing a lot of moisture. The beaten eggs, when they're heated, coagulate and create a solid, firm protein matrix.
Oh, okay.
So layering the beaten eggs directly onto the noodles ensures they set up firmly, acting as a crucial binder and a moisture barrier. It prevents the ricotta from leaching water downwards into the sauce layers below.
So it results in a firm, sliceable piece of lasagna with defined layers even before the cheese fully melts.
That's it. It's a foundational structural guarantee.
That's brilliant. And the finishing note drives home the focus on decadence. For a cheesier lasagna, you can spread mozzarella between every layer or just add more at the top. The ideal is defined by robust cheese binding, layer definition, and an abundance of flavor, whether the sauce is homemade or jarred. Now we really start to see the versatility of the form. We're leaving the classic meat and tomato base behind entirely and focusing on alternative proteins and vegetables. The black bean lasagna is a perfect example of a protein alternative built around speed and whole grain sheets.
It definitely showcases efficiency and modern ingredient use. The main protein alternative uses 1.5 cups of cooked black turtle beans combined directly with spaghetti sauce.
Very simple.
Very. And the structure itself is minimal. 4 whole grain cooked lasagna sheets, 3/4 pound of mozzarella, ricotta, or cottage cheese, 2 cups and half a cup of Parmesan.
So when you look at that composition, the black beans are filling the void left by the ground beef, but they introduce a challenge, right? Ground beef has fat, which helps bind and adds flavor depth. Beans are dry and they absorb moisture aggressively. So how does this recipe compensate for that?
By combining the beans directly with the sauce before assembly, the beans absorb the moisture and flavor before they're layered, which prevents them from soaking up water from the cheese mixture during baking. The structure is using a prehydrated protein source.
That makes sense.
And the assembly just confirms the speed of it all. Sauce is spooned into the bottom, remaining sauce is combined with the beans. Layers start with 2 sheets, tops with the beans and sauce, then the cottage or ricotta, mozzarella, and Parmesan, ending only with Parmesan. The short bake time, just 20 minutes at 350 degrees, confirms this is a fast prep, minimum simmer version. The structural integrity relies entirely on those pre-moistened beans.
Then we have broccoli lasagna, which introduces a very distinct and I think technically crucial procedural step right at the beginning. It instructs the cook to toss cooked noodles with salad oil, pepper, and salt till coated well.
This is a preventative measure. It's fighting against the inherent enemy of all lasagnas, excessive moisture.
Right.
Broccoli, like a lot of vegetables, releases moisture during baking. The oil coating on the noodles creates a hydrophobic, water-repelling barrier. This technique is a crucial safeguard. It prevents the noodles from sticking together, absorbing the moisture released by the broccoli and cheese, and it ensures they maintain their texture throughout the baking process. It's an exercise in moisture control starting right at the foundation.
And the cheese blend is tangy. It features a 1/4 cup of sour cream combined with 1 pound of cottage cheese. This mixture would be significantly tannier and looser than pure ricotta.
For sure.
The layering ends with sauce, then it's sprinkled with mozzarella. But here is the critical procedural difference. It must be covered tightly with foil and refrigerated before baking.
That chilling time is what's known in professional kitchens as meltdown time or settling time.
Okay.
It implies this lasagna is meant to be prepared ahead of time, allowing the layers, especially that loose sour cream and cottage cheese mix, to chemically integrate and firm up slightly before you expose them to heat. This initial chilling helps prevent the layers from running or sliding out of the pan when they eventually warm up.
Moving on to the cheddar vegetable lasagna, this one takes a sharp departure from the ubiquitous tomato sauce. It's utilizing a white sauce base.
The white sauce is the structural key here. The sauce is made from margarine, flour, and 2½ cups of milk, which signals a classic roux-based construction.
Right.
And for you, the listener, a roux is simply fat. In this case, margarine and flour cooked together, which then acts as a thickening agent when milk is slowly added. This creates a dense, creamy, non-acidic matrix to hold all the vegetables and cheese.
And the vegetable focus is robust. 4 cups of shredded carrots, 1/2 pound of sliced mushrooms, and 10 ounces of frozen, chopped, thawed, and well-drained spinach.
A lot of vegetables.
And the cheese focus is on sharpness. 12 ounces of sharp cheddar is central, mixed with cream-style cottage cheese and topped with Parmesan. The use of cheddar in a white sauce base is classic American casserole preparation. It's maximizing that savory depth.
The procedure mandates sautéing the mushrooms first, then the carrots and onions, followed by the white sauce construction. But here's the detail that absolutely stands out to me.
What's that?
The recipe states it makes 1 serving.
Wait, 1 serving? Given the volumes 12 ounces of cheddar, 4 cups of carrots, 9 noodles, that is a lasagna intended for a giant.
It sounds less like a typical serving and more like a mountain of cheesy, dense vegetable pasta.
It really does.
It highlights the potential for, transcription error in these inherited collections. If we assume the ingredient list is correct, this serving must be intended as a truly massive, perhaps 2 or 3 pound individual portion, or the yield metric is simply misplaced. But it's a fun anomaly that reminds us that even meticulous recipes can contain quirks.
That's the biggest bowl of comfort food I can possibly imagine. Finally, in this section, let's talk about the highly technical and sophisticated lasagna of greens and lemons. This is a masterclass in structural engineering, using really delicate ingredients.
Indeed, the greens are highly specific. Spinach beet, bourcole, which is a form of kale and leaf mustard, explicitly noting the use of chunky stems. These are all greens with strong, slightly bitter profiles. And the flavor profile is elevated by lemon juice from 1 piece and fresh lemon rind mixed with goat cheese and ricotta. That combination of high acid and strong greens is highly reactive in terms of moisture.
So the moisture management instructions are the most rigorous we've seen so far. It emphasizes cooking the greens until tender and adding lemon juice until all the moisture becomes reabsorbed. Furthermore, the cheese and greens mixture must be dried completely before assembly.
And this is the critical insight for you, the listener. When you use watery vegetables like spinach or bourcole, the natural cell structure breaks down when you heat it, releasing significant amounts of moisture.
Right.
If you layer that moisture directly into the dish, you guarantee a runny, soupy result. The recipe combats this with the pre-cooking and evaporation step. They aren't just cooking the greens, they're actively driving out every last bit of water, creating a dense, dry-filling matrix that will hold its shape perfectly. This is the difference between a high-end gourmet lasagna and a watery mess.
And the baking parameters reflect those delicate ingredients. It specifies a glass baking dish and a remarkably low temperature of 300 degrees Fahrenheit, baked for a longer duration, 30 to 45 minutes.
That low, slow heat is designed to melt the goat cheese and ricotta without causing the highly dried greens to scorch or release any further residual moisture rapidly. The entire preparation, from the specific choice of bitter greens to the demand for absolute dryness and low heat, underscores an approach aiming for subtle, balanced flavor over heavy, saturated comfort. It requires patience and precision.
As we've established, the lasagna structure proves incredibly adaptable. The physical form itself can be radically altered, as we see in the lasagna rolls with tomato fennel. This isn't a slab, it's a series of individual, carefully constructed tubes.
Yeah, this shifts the focus from structural integrity in the pan to the precision of the individual component.
And the core ingredients pivot once again. The base is not meat or heavy dairy, but firm tofu, 10.5 ounces, drained well and crumbled, which is mixed with a sautéed mushroom pepper mixture.
Tofu is used here because it's highly absorbent, and it just takes on the flavor of that fennel and red bell pepper mixture so well.
And the flavor element is highly specialized. It features chopped fennel bulbs and fennel seeds alongside thyme and red bell pepper. It gives it an aromatic, almost anise-like savory profile. That move to fennel signals a deliberate, sophisticated flavor choice that moves away from the standard basil, oregano, garlic Italian profile.
Absolutely. And the assembly technique, what they call the jelly roll technique, is what defines this structure. Each noodle is spread with a precise 1/3 cup of the filling, sprinkled with cheese, and then carefully rolled up, seam facing down.
The specificity of that 1/3 cup is telling. Too little filling, and the roll is hollow. Too much, and it bursts or won't hold its spiral shape. This requires real finesse and consistency to maintain that tight structure.
And the resulting structure is inherently stable because the filling is entirely encased by the noodle, which is then held in place by the sauce spread on the bottom and spooned over the rolls before baking. The baking is standard 350 degrees, but the prep work is entirely focused on geometric precision.
It's important to contrast that with the related but structurally very different lasagna rolls recipe, which leans entirely into speed and convenience.
Yes.
This version uses bulk Italian sausage and cream-style Dutch cheese, but the true innovation lies in its cooking method, entirely in the microwave.
That microwave technique is the definition of rapid layering. It's designed for a quick weeknight assembly. The sausage and onions cook in the microwave at 100% power for 3 to 4 minutes. The rolls themselves cook for another 4 to 5 minutes, and then the final cheese melt takes just 30 seconds to a minute, still at 100% power.
The implications of microwaving a layered pasta dish are pretty significant, though. You achieve rapid internal heating, which sets the cheese and cooks the noodles through efficiently, but you sacrifice all the textural complexity.
You lose the browned edges, the bubbly, slightly caramelized cheese crust, all the things that traditional baking provides. It prioritizes speed over surface texture.
And they offer a pragmatic substitution note for the dry red wine in the sauce. Just use water.
That's an indicator that the flavor complexity from the wine is considered secondary to the structural requirement of simply having enough liquid volume in the sauce base to hydrate the rolls during that rapid microwaving process.
So, shifting to a more architectural marvel, we have the lasagna torte. This moves beyond the rectangular casserole dish and into a specialized vertical form factor. This lasagna is meant to stand tall and be visually impressive.
It demands a 9-inch spring-form baking pan, which immediately suggests a tall, freestanding structure meant for slicing like a cake. This also requires a specific hands-on noodle modification.
What's that?
Trimming the noodles to fit the circular shape of the pan. This is not simply dumping pre-made ingredients. This is bespoke construction.
And the layering sequence is meticulous. Noodles, ricotta mix, which is combined with reserved sautéed onions, parmesan, and pepper, then spinach, tomato mixture, and fontana cheese. This sequence is repeated 2 times. But what stands out to me is the instruction to use pasta trimmings as a layer within the torte.
That is fantastic attention to detail and efficiency. The trimmings, which are the awkward, angular pieces left over from trimming the sheets into circles, are used as filler.
So you don't waste anything.
Instead of discarding them, they're layered into the center to fill gaps, provide density, and help absorb excess moisture, all contributing to the vertical stability of the torte. Nothing is wasted, and every part contributes to the structure.
And the preparation for serving confirms the elaborate structure. It requires the removal of the foil lining before serving.
The foil lining and the spring-form pan are the temporary supports. And the choice of Fontana cheese, which is known for its excellent melting properties and nutty flavor, ensures the layers bind together seamlessly during the long bake time of 50 minutes to an hour at 350. Fontina is far more elastic than mozzarella and much richer, creating a cohesive, easy-to-slice structure when it cools.
This is where the concept of layering truly transcends tradition. We arrive at dessert, starting with the apple lasagna. This proves that the lasagna template is functionally an alternative form of cake architecture that just happens to use pasta sheets instead of sponge cake.
It's a complete structural and flavor pivot. Instead of a meat sauce, we're using 2 cans of apple pie filling. The cheese layer, traditionally ricotta, here uses 1 cup of ricotta, 2 cups of shredded cheddar cheese, and a slightly beaten egg.
The cheddar is the ultimate surprise element here. Why cheddar in a dessert with apples and cinnamon?
That's classic American culinary contrast. The sharp tang of the cheddar provides a counterpoint to the extreme sweetness of the apple pie filling, and it prevents the dish from becoming cloyingly sweet.
So it's a balance.
It functions not just as a binder, along with the egg and ricotta, but as a crucial flavor dimension, adding a savory note that complements the cinnamon and nutmeg.
The unique flavors are driven by almond extract, 1 teaspoon cinnamon, nutmeg, and brown sugar. And the layering logic is simple. Filling, half the noodles, cheese mixture, remaining noodles, and then the rest of the filling.
The finishing detail is a crumbly topping made of nutmeg, cinnamon, oats, flour, and 6 tablespoons of brown sugar, blended with margarine. After baking for 45 minutes at 350, it's cooled for 15 minutes. And the final touch is a blended sour cream and brown sugar mixture that must be covered and refrigerated before you use it.
That contrast is deliberate, isn't it? A warm, crumbly, spicy baked structure topped with a cold, smooth, and tangy cream garnish. It's an exercise in temperature and textural layering, not just ingredient layering.
Absolutely. And if the apple lasagna was an unexpected dessert, the chocolate lasagna is a complete fabrication of the form using dessert principles from the ground up. It starts with specialized, handmade pasta. They are treating the noodle as a key ingredient, not just a conveyor belt for other flavors.
Yes, the pasta itself is infused with flavor. 1 3/4 cups of flour, 2 tablespoons of unsweetened cocoa powder, 2 extra large eggs, 2 teaspoons of vegetable oil, and salt. The recipe is highly technical. It requires the dough to be kneaded for 15 minutes until it's shiny and smooth, followed by a 30-minute rest. This attention to dough quality suggests they're aiming for a tender, flavorful layer that won't distract from that rich filling.
And the cooking time for this delicate chocolate pasta is incredibly short, boiling for only 20 seconds after the water returns to a boil. They emphasize immediately immersing the noodles in cool water to stop the cooking, and then carefully draining them on towels to prevent tearing. This is almost more akin to making fresh ravioli dough than standard dried lasagna sheets.
The filling is the centerpiece. 4 cups of whole milk ricotta, 12 ounces of chopped bittersweet chocolate, 2 cups of heavy cream, 6 tablespoons of sugar, 2 tablespoons of Grand Marnier, the orange liqueur, and 1 tablespoon of orange rind.
It's essentially an Italian-American cannoli or tiramisu filling that's been adapted for the layered structure. The high volume of cream and chocolate makes this an extremely rich, high-fat, high-sugar filling, which is where we find a major procedural anomaly.
Baking temperature. This dish requires an extremely high 425 degrees Fahrenheit for only 20 to 25 minutes. Why such intense heat, given that the filling is mostly dairy and chocolate?
This is the crucial technical explanation. Savory lasagnas bake low and slow, like at 350, to ensure the internal meat and cheese cook through and melt evenly. The chocolate lasagna filling, however, is already fully edible.
Right.
The high heat is required for rapid surface setting and caramelization. It creates a quick crust on the top and forces the sugars and starches in the filling to set very quickly. If you tried to bake this at 350, the heat would penetrate too slowly, and it would likely cause that rich, heavy cream and chocolate mixture to boil and potentially separate.
So the rapid heat stabilizes it.
It does. And the structural requirement post-bake confirms this. It must stand at least 10 minutes to make it solidified before serving warm. That resting period is essential for the structure to move from a liquid molten state to a sliceable, layered dessert.
We've spent a lot of time detailing these specific recipes, but looking across all 50 versions, we can start to synthesize the patterns and identify the common structural challenges that the authors addressed through wildly different means. First, let's look at the incredible flexibility of that fresh cheese layer.
The variations in common cheese ingredients are vast. We see cottage cheese, ricotta, pot cheese, and Dutch cheese frequently listed either interchangeably or combined. And this is a crucial insight. These cheeses are functionally defined by their role as a binder and a moisture source, rather than a specific flavor component.
So give us some examples of how that functional definition changes the recipe.
Absolutely. American lasagna uses cream-style cottage cheese primarily for volume and low cost. Lasagna Primavera takes the functional substitution to the extreme, suggesting you substitute ricotta entirely with a mixture of yogurt and tofu.
Wow.
A very modern, high-protein, low-fat adaptation that still fulfills that binding role. Chicken cheese lasagna uses fat-free pot cheese, which is essentially a very dry, firm cottage cheese, prioritizing low fat and a stable structure. And lasagna version 4 uses a mix of Dutch cheese, ricotta, and sour cream, aiming for a complex, tangy creaminess.
So the textural and moistening function of the cheese layer is often more important than its specific dairy origin, but we also encounter some truly unusual cheeses that fundamentally alter the flavor profile.
We did. These gourmet additions move the dish beyond simple comfort food into a specific culinary niche. Chili lasagna uses Asiago, which offers a sharp, nutty flavor to stand up to the spice intensity of the chili.
That makes sense.
Lasagna Napoli uses American cheese slices as the final topping, a distinctly convenient and Americanized touch that guarantees a smooth, uniform melt. Then we had Gorgonzola in lasagna, with spinach wild mushrooms, adding that pungent, complex blue cheese note, and of course Fontina in the structural lasagna torte, chosen for its supreme melt quality to hold that vertical structure together.
Shifting focus, the complexity of the sauce preparation is another major differentiator. The simmering times are all over the map, clearly distinguishing the quick prep versions from the slow-cooked culinary efforts. What should you, the listener, take away from this range?
I think you should select your simmering time based on your goal. Speed versus flavor depth. Compare the short simmers. Lasagna Deliciosa only simmers the meat and tomato mixture for about 20 minutes. Lasagna, Rob, is similar. These recipes rely on pre-made sauce or pre-seasoned meat for their flavor. They are weeknight recipes prioritizing rapid assembly.
And then you look at the traditional slow simmering recipes. Lasagna version 5 requires simmering for a staggering 2 to 3 hours.
2 to 3 hours.
And Luigi's Lasagna al Forno demands a total of 90 minutes of simmering time.
These long simmers are flavor concentration exercises. The prolonged gentle heat breaks down the connective tissues in the meat and allows the sugar, acid, and water in the tomatoes to slowly reduce and concentrate, creating a deep, complex richness, that umami, that quick sauces simply cannot achieve. If you have the time, this long simmer creates the foundational depth that defines a truly exceptional traditional lasagna.
And the techniques for achieving the desired sauce consistency are telling. They reinforce that moisture management is the primary challenge in all of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We see two distinct approaches to consistency. The low-fat turkey lasagna sauce specifically instructs the cook to add water as necessary for the sauce not to be extremely dry.
Because turkey is so lean.
Exactly. The sauce can dry out quickly, so they actively add water back to maintain the hydration needed for the noodles to absorb.
Conversely, recipes like lasagna with spinach wild mushrooms instruct the cook to cook the mushroom mix until the liquid evaporates.
That's the reduction strategy. Mushrooms and spinach are moisture bombs. Here, the focus is on reducing liquid volume to create a dense, highly flavored component that won't compromise the structure. This constant dance adding moisture when necessary, like with turkey, and actively reducing it when needed, like with mushrooms and leafy greens, is perhaps the most critical technical skill demanded by this entire collection.
Lastly, let's look at the humble lasagna noodle itself, which gets treated differently based on the required structural outcome. We saw various noodle preparation tips in the instructions.
The noodle is the structural column of the dish. For texture and nonstick properties, some recipes instruct tossing the cooked noodles with oil, like in broccoli lasagna and lazy lasagna. That oil barrier is critical for recipes with high moisture vegetables. Other recipes, like lasagna version 2, emphasize rinsing the noodles immediately with cold water after draining to stop cooking and remove starch.
And rinsing with cold water seems like such a simple step, but why is removing the starch so important?
Starch is sticky, and if the noodles stick together, you compromise the layering. By rinsing, you stop the residual cooking, preventing them from becoming mushy, and you remove the surface starch, making them cleaner, easier to handle, and less likely to bind prematurely.
Okay.
And then there are recipes like lasagna version 3, which simply state to handle the cooked noodles carefully to avoid tearing, a reminder of the constant fragility of the main building material. What we've seen is an entire universe contained within this simple layered structure.
We've traveled the full spectrum of layered pasta. We moved from the classic beef and cheese staple designed for massive servings and freezing, through highly detailed vegetarian masterpieces featuring exotic greens and demanding moisture control, and finally landing in the realm of dessert with apples and chocolate.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this collection of 50 recipes demonstrates the incredible adaptability of a single beloved form of food preparation. The lasagna structure is fundamentally a template, adapting to changing diets, from low-fat turkey to a vegetable tort, to available ingredients, and to profound culinary adventurousness, all while maintaining its fundamental layered identity.
The key takeaway is clear. The architecture of layering is robust and versatile. It's a template for any ingredient combination imaginable, limited only by the layered construction and the necessity of proper moisture management to ensure structural integrity during baking and serving. Every single recipe, whether it's using processed cheddar or gorgonzola, whether it's simmering for 20 minutes or 3 hours, relies on the cook's ability to stack and stabilize.
Absolutely. The rigor of assembly, from packing tightly to minimize air pockets in the freezer versions, to the careful jelly roll technique in the tofu-based rolls, to trimming pasta pieces for the spring-form torte, it shows that the process of layering is the constant, regardless of the flavor outcome. The chef is an engineer first.
This leaves us with a final provocative thought. Considering the strict guidelines for layered assembly found throughout this collection, from preventing air pockets to careful noodle rolling, what common comfort food that is currently limited by tradition is most ripe for a similar revolutionary exploration into 50 unexpected layered variations? What is the next food ready to be lasagnified? Is it meatloaf, reorganized into layered tiers? Is it the sandwich, taken to architectural extremes? The potential for structured, layered reinvention is seemingly limitless.